All right, we got ourselves an Avengers update. Now, I was reading this article about this game, and this is Marvel's Avengers, by the way, the game. And I was reading an article about it, and the article was highlighting this whole who's A.I.M, obviously the main villains going into this story so far as what we know. And I was watching the video. It's unlisted right now by way of Marvel Entertainment, so I guess they gave it to them, or probably to a bunch of publications. Said, hey, highlight this. Hopefully it'll be public by the time this video goes live, so they don't like strike me or anything. But we're gonna watch the video because there was something about halfway in that really intrigued me, that talked about the direction of Crystal Dynamics that they may have said before, but the fact that they're reiterating it, it may seem something small, but it's big. And we can go check this out. We're gonna check this out. I didn't watch after that. I was like halfway into the video. It's only 4 minutes long, 4.5 minutes long, and I didn't even see what was happening after that. So that'll be new to me. But I do want you guys to watch this. So let's check it out.
We want people to want to fight A.I.M, but at the same time, we also really want you to love A.I.M.
Many Marvel fans know what Hydra is. Hydra is all about using military might to conquer. A.I.M is all about science.
A.I.M starts off very noble. They believe that they can offer the world an alternative to the superheroes.
As A.I.M, it's all about science and logic, and it doesn't make sense to have these people who are above everyone else, so we should neutralize that. That makes a dangerous world for the Avengers.
So after the disaster of A-Day, the superheroes are outlawed, and A.I.M sort of steps in and fills that vacuum.
To the public, A.I.M is helpful, and they're bringing tomorrow's technology today. But then, as you investigate things with Kamala and the Avengers, and you go to some of the A.I.M headquarters, that's where you start getting into the black heart of A.I.M.
And again, for those guys
and
that
technology that is so epically powerful, and A.I.M consumed all of.
And by the way, that was important. You kind of get some tidbits of the story. But I want you guys to understand, because there are a lot of normies that are attracted to this, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now, comics really in general, but certainly nowadays become more mainstream. I think a lot of people want it, and I said this in previous videos, they wanted like The Last of Us 2 with an Avengers skin, right? They wanted this very linear experience, and they expected that, even though that wasn't how they were promoting it. So I have to mention that, because this story is the main story, but that's it. The main story is almost on a back burner when you consider the game at large. It was a bone maybe that gives you guys, it's probably not even that many hours that you can put into it. And they're going to make you play as like the 6 main characters, jumping on and off of them at random spots. But you need to keep in mind that that's like to kind of pop this off, almost like a glamorized tutorial, right? The meat of the game is obviously doing the missions, the war table missions, and all of the post like story content, because that just pops the game off. So you have to understand that, because if you do judge the game based primarily on just what you feel like the main story is going to be, you're doing a disservice to yourself and a disservice to the game, because that's not the main portion of it. I think there'll be many stories that'll be more so involved. And obviously this story will have something to do with the missions that you're playing in some capacity after you beat the main story. However, you got to understand that this game is centered more so around playing with other people. It's an RPG kind of, in the sense that you build these characters up, and you can pick and choose. You're not limited once that happens to who you're going to be able to select. So I think that's important for me to mention, because I think a lot of people are going to get confused by this and say, well, this is the story and this is it. But no, like, that's not, the game is not. I know some of you expected that, but that's not what the game is.
Stark Industries after the events at A-Day, so they have access to technology, to insights, and since they work with the Avengers, they also know their weak points.
So to make sure that A.I.M is as insidious as they should be, we really studied their first appearances.
Comics are always the first step. So that core DNA basically influences every aspect of the design process that Crystal does.
Again, that was a small bit. This is the part where I stopped. So everything after this I have not seen. That's a small tidbit, but it's important. And if they actually genuinely are doing that, that makes for a lot of ideas, right, that I have floating kind of in my head. And again, I think they do have access to Marvel's entire catalog, or vast majority of it, if not. That's where they should start. I know that from a creative standpoint, I know you see this in Hollywood a lot. You know, you're dealing with big egos in Hollywood, right? So Hollywood, they can't remake, and it's not even a remake. They can't do live action versions of stories that exist, paying attention to the detail and just making them come to life as they already, again, happen in the books. This is why you see some of the things that happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example, though a lot of that I guess it's kind of loose depictions of stuff that already happened between the Ultron thing, the Infinity Gauntlet arc, but it's not the arc, right? It's not, it loses some very, very important details. But I think that they do the fans a disservice when they do that. But mainly it's about the fact that a lot of these stories have already been written, man. Look, there's mountains upon mountains upon mountains of this stuff that's coming out weekly, right? And not to mention the stuff that's already out, which is what they were referring to in AIM. You have a chance and to focus on that, and that really, you don't have to put well, you got to put manpower in obviously creating it and making it unique to your video game. However, a lot of these stories have already been wrote for you, so just refer to them and draw influence from it. There's a lot of great ideas, a lot of good stuff that's happened that we love to see. I told you guys, and my sort of ideas with the artifact thing, and maybe making like a select few individuals be able to get like an actual, infinity gem or soul gem or something like that. Again, these are stories that they could tell. They could, have you go on Titan or something before fighting Thanos. Like they could have so much stuff that they can do with stories that's already been written. So if that's how they design the game based on, okay, what happened in the books, let's start there. Doesn't mean it has to be an exact adaptation, but you can draw major influence from it. And if that's what they're doing, and I love the fact they mentioned like that's where it starts with us. For the comic book fan like myself, that actually, again, I'm not a normie in the sense that I just know of the characters and I've watched a few movies. This is stuff that I grew up on, and the level of detail is important to me, right? As far as what I'm getting out of this game. I would love to see some of these arcs come to life. And again, you still have that RPG experience in which you can have each individual character be built up to whatever person's liking as far as how they're playing with them. So you have that already there. What I think is important is that they do focus on the books and draw a lot of influence from the book and adaptations that already happened, because that will give them some great ideas as far as what they could do. I talked about it, that the possibility is just endless in terms of the different worlds, regions, and stuff that they can go to, and then have arcs that have been highly influenced by the comic books. Just continue.
And we just found all sorts of crazy locations that they built, and weapons that they've built, and robots they've created. Their design is very functional. It's not very showy.
It's funny because if you actually asked an AIM scientist if they thought their designs were sinister, they would be befuddled by that. They wouldn't understand it. Sometimes that might end up looking a little alien, and for them it's just roll it out the door. You're gonna come up against a wide variety of AIM threats as you play through the world of Marvel's Avengers. You'll be faced with robot automatons that they have created.
I think that was the guy that we fought in the beta. That was like the one big boss mission, not tied to the story because you do fight Abomination with Hulk. But, with the main part of the game, which is the 4-player versus environment, that was a really cool mission. And it shows you that they're willing to have you fight massive enemies, which is pretty cool.
Suit wearing mech troops that are going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Hulk, as well as some large mechanized threats. But no AIM experience would be complete without the classic beekeeper.
Because they wear these kind of helmets that look like beekeeper helmets. What that comes from is in the comics, the individual members of AIM were anonymous.
And that collective mentality, that hive mind, makes you automatically think of the structures and the hierarchies that work within a beehive. That honeycomb shape seemed like the perfect way to express the ideals of AIM, so we try to bleed it throughout the design of AIM wherever we can to help provide both texture and architectural detail in their structures.
So at the beginning of the game, you meet some of the founders of AIM, George Tarleton and Monica Rapuccini.
George Tarleton's a very complex character. He truly believes in a world protected by science.
He finds the Avengers to be very dangerous. Power that is unchecked and unregulated like that is a dangerous thing. And so
it's a
he
status.
wants to put checks and balances on that sort of thing. You may not agree with his methods, but at least if you can understand where he's coming from, for me that's a victory. Marvel's bringing up really like one of these original supervillains as well, you know? Like, it's cool, I think, that it's not always the same sorts of like familiar stories that we're finding, right?
Where George
See, that's the
is
thing,
very,
like, and that's what gets me about guys that, like, I'm not questioning that guy's comic book material. I don't know, but like when they say things like that, we watched another person that was talking about this say the same thing. It's like, I think it's cool that they're not bringing in all of this like, you know, characters or like trying to focus just solely on the stuff that we've seen. They always refer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm like, dude, do y'all not understand that the Marvel doesn't start and stop with Marvel Cinematic Universe? There's so much material out there that already exists. Like, it doesn't start and stop with those guys, man.
reserved. Monica is much more assertive.
She is the second in command, if you will, with George Tarleton.
Monica's issue with the superheroes really is they just sort of stand in her way, because all that matters to her are her experiments with the Inhumans. When they try to sort of stop her from doing that, that is her big conflict. You know, I kind of feel like she means well, but then maybe not so much.
We wanted to really poke at these kind of serious ideas of what is the dangers of science? How can technology be a positive thing, and how can it be a negative force?
AIM is an essential part of our original story that we at Crystal Dynamics have been, you know, working so hard to create.
With anything Marvel, it's all about understanding who they are at their core. When it comes to AIM and Marvel's Avengers, it's all about looking to the past, but then bringing that to the future.
All right. I'm not against that. I'm absolutely not against that. I'm not against that at all. Of bringing the past into the future does not mean that you have to neglect. I think that's what a lot of normies expect people to do, is just completely neglect the history. Right. This is why they don't mind retcons, copycat characters, and what have you, because that's not anything that they truly care about, because they feel like it's a necessary thing, which is not. These characters have been around for decades, you know what I mean? No, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have been around for decades, in the sense before I was born, you know, before my mother was born in some of these guys' cases. And they've existed for that long, even though, you know, some of them, there have been retcons, obviously, but the characters being true to the characters is not an insult or anything like that. So, look, the part that really intrigues me about that video is that they do keep emphasizing the fact that this is about keeping the characters, or keeping like the books in mind as they build out these guys. And that's what it's about with me. And if the game can do that, there's an endless amount of stuff that they can do. I told you, I would imagine that they do, but I would hope that they have people working for them that aren't just beasts in terms of design, you know what I mean? But more so that know the books. Not like know of it, not guys that can Google stuff. I'm saying that already have it up here. Multiple guys, actually, that could influence them in terms of, you know, give them ideas in terms of what direction to take the game as they build out these new worlds. You know, they've already said, you know, that you're not going to be fighting the same enemies. Yes, it's top heavy in the AIM and the robots and stuff like that, but those aren't going to be the only people that you're going to end up fighting. So I think that that's important to make note of. But nonetheless, if they keep referring to the books, they'll be in decent shape. So we'll see what happens. But hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, y'all be easy. Peace.